You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Hey everyone, welcome to a very important episode of Ask Drone U. You won't want to miss this, so make sure you're paying attention, especially if you're working the 9 to 5, the mediocrity, the boring, everyday, same thing, same job, same place.
There's the old song, Ants Go Marching. I think a lot of people can relate to that. By the Dave Matthews Band. Know it? Anybody know it?
Bum, bum, bum. Yes, I know. And I've got it on my phone.
And it's all about that, right?
Yeah.
You get up every day, you go do the same thing, and you're just ants marching. And that has always been such a visual song for me.
That's so funny because I really like Dave Matthews growing up in Virginia, so I really like him. So today we're going to be talking about when is the right time to make that jump from the boring 9 to 5 to living the drone life. And then before we talk about that, a few special things from our sponsors. If you haven't checked out our book, Living the Drone Life, on the formula to do exactly what we're talking about today in much more detail, please check it out. Go to droneubook.com. So important you check that out. Why? Because it's really going to give you everything that you need, you know, to move forward, to understand what you're getting yourself into, realizing how difficult it is, but knowing that you can do it.
I think that's the key phrase right there, because I read what somebody said, having read the book, and they said that it just opened my eyes to the fact that I now believe I can actually do this.
That's awesome.
That was really, really cool.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So droneubook.com. Also special thanks to our sponsors, Video Blocks. If you're like me and you create packages of videos for your clients, like how I do for my clients, you're probably using segues, transitions, B-roll, audio clips, copyright-free music. You've got to check out videoblocks.com/drone 2016 to save $100 to get all of that for one low annual subscription. So check it out, videoblocks.com/drone 2016.
Yeah, very good stuff there.
Definitely. Let's play today's question from someone who listens to the show, asking the critical question that I'm sure all of you have been thinking about. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. If you're listening on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts, please leave us a review. It means so much to us. It helps other people find the show, and it really helps us progress the industry as a whole. If you're about maintaining the freedom to fly, please write us a review, because there is a direct correlation there.
Hey guys, this is Sean from North Carolina. First off, I want to say thank you for the podcast and thank you for what you do. I used your study guide to pass 107. I'm excited about that, and now I'm ready to live the drone life, hence my question. Currently, I'm working a 9 to 5 job, and I want to know what advice you would give to work myself up to transitioning away from the 9 to 5 and more into the drone life. I realize it's going to take some time and I'm going to need some income, but what tips, tricks, anything you could recommend, when to make that final cut, when to go ahead and take that big leap? Thanks ahead of time. Bye.
I get excited just hearing his question.
Do you?
Yeah, because there's just this whole world open to him that is achievable. And I really, really hope that, Sean, you'll keep us up to date in terms of how things progress for you. And we want to be a part of your success, because I think just by the fact that you're asking the question and taking the time to send it in tells us that you've got a good chance of being successful. So thank you for sending that question in.
Definitely. No, we really do appreciate that. And Rob has a whole list of things he wants to go over, which I think are really, really important. And I've had this conversation with one of our members over the phone one time, and I really told him, you know, in my mind, you have to have certain things set up. You've got to have clients in the hopper. You've got to have a system to feed these clients, to scale the business, and a belief that you can do it, but also you have to have prepped and planned more so than you ever have for anything else to ensure your business's success.
Yeah, for sure. You know, something that just comes to mind, it's interesting, Paul, because as we get a lot of these kinds of questions about people wanting to live the drone life, obviously. And I think we could come up with a lot of different lists each time those questions get asked. And it seems like the list might be a little bit different every single time we come up with a list. It's because there's a lot to think about.
There's so much to think about.
Yeah, there's a lot to consider. And as I'm thinking, one of the things that comes to mind is I think you have to have some element of this particular business that you are passionate about. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important to say that your passion should come first, meaning that like if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, and it's really easy when you struggle. And there are days I struggle every day. And one of the things that I really hate about all the entrepreneurial shows on iTunes, all the interview podcasts and whatnot, is no one really confronts the fact that it is difficult. Even if you're doing what you love, it is difficult. Right. You do have days where you're like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah,
I want to stay home and F you all, and I'm going to bed. You know what I mean? I've had those days, and I know other people have too. And the thing is that the way you get through that is you ask yourself, why am I doing this?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm doing this, Rob, because I love staring at your shiny, damn bald head every morning. Okay? I'm
really?
Kidding. No, that's not why I'm here.
Oh,
but it is nice. Anyway. No, I'm doing this because I love to fly. I love to travel. I don't want to be like every other schmuck out there that works the 9-to-5 life. You know, I get why people do that. It's they have the same job. They're secure. They're comfortable. But do you ever really have fun when you're comfortable? I mean, yeah, you got to be comfortable to have fun. But normally, the most crazy adventurous experiences you had, it was a little scary to hop on the zip line at first before you went down the hill. You know what I mean? There's that level of fear. There's that element of question, of self-doubt. And as soon as you overcome that,
sure.
As soon as you overcome that, it's like the gates open up, the rainbows are everywhere, unicorns are flying, and like you're ready to do business.
I want to go there, wherever that place is. That sounds really cool. But yeah,
it's a mental state.
Okay. Oh, gotcha. Okay, let me get there real quick. No, I mean the reality is some people actually do prefer the 9-to-5 job, and it's a good thing because there are a lot of 9-to-5 jobs that need to be taken care of, right? So kudos to those people that are doing those kinds of things and making the world a better place from that perspective. But for those that want to live the drone life, yeah, you've got to love to fly. I think you probably need to be a people person. If not, you have to at least like people and enjoy discussing things with people. You're going to have to do some selling. I mean, particularly as you're starting a business, it's not like you're going to hire a sales team. So you're going to need to understand how to interact with people and maybe do a little work on personalities and understanding personalities and how to react to different personalities. So there's just got to be something about going after this that really gets you excited and enthusiastic, like you just heard Paul. I mean, you could hear him talking about it, and he elevates in the tone and in the excitement in his voice. Just want to lay that out there. But as you start to get this going and you're thinking about this, Sean, there are some things that I don't know get talked about. And I've read some articles in the past that have really opened my eyes to some of these things. For example, if you're married in particular, you've really got to go deep with this with your spouse. I mean, if you're in a position where your family is secure because of your 9-to-5 position and you're talking about leaving that impacts your family in a big way. If you're single, living on whatever, very little a month, well, good for you. You have an advantage, frankly.
And people who don't live like that and live lavishly, like this morning, I'm sitting here thinking to myself as I bought a coffee, and I'm like, do I really want to save money? Stop buying coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
Do I really want to save money? Stop eating lunch out every day. Do I really want to save money? Stop buying things at the grocery store that you just want and you don't need. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do I really want to save money and look better? Stop eating after 8 o'clock, Paul. That's my struggle. Hardcore. I'm laying it out there. Okay. You gotta come over. Gotta overcome that.
All right. And you will. So talk these things through. Understand your current situation. Don't be idealistic about this. Realize that there are some challenges ahead. And everybody who's affected by those challenges needs to be a part of the discussion and a part of this process. I've read articles where they've been centered on the spouses of entrepreneurs, and they have literally led to divorce. We would hate ourselves if we had any part of that, obviously.
I think this is actually a really important thing. If your wife is not on board with doing what you're doing, I'm not
or
sure.
Or your husband.
Yeah.
Right? I
or
mean,
your
depending
husband.
on whoever from the family is going to be doing this.
Yeah. If they're not on board, that's going to be really, really difficult. You've got to have that support from your spouse. And if you don't, I question whether it's really possible.
I wouldn't disagree.
Or if the relationship continues.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean,
it's one or the other.
If you're in that position, essentially something has to give.
Yep.
Right? Eventually, things will come to a head.
Yeah.
And something will have to give, and you don't want to put yourself in that position. You don't have to. You don't put yourself in that position by talking about those things before you ever get started. So understand your familial situation and deal with that up front. And then you've got to start thinking about your financial needs. I know some of these things might sound obvious, but I don't know that people do them, at least not intensely enough. Understand what it takes for you to live financially, and then perhaps make some changes to where you set yourself up to be more apt to be successful, understanding there are going to be some valleys in this process.
There were times where I didn't have any money. I'm just going to throw it out there.
And for you, fortunately, it was just you.
Yeah.
Right? So if you had to sleep on a park bitch.
Park bitch. If you got to sleep on a park bitch, you better be careful.
FCC, that's not fair. Park bench.
Oh, man. I'm going to...
That would be the epitome of Freudian slippage right there. Anyways.
If you're going to sleep on a park bitch... Bring blankets.
Yes.
And a few pillows.
Anyways, financial. Think about that. Plan for it. Understand the transition is going to be challenging. One of the things that came to mind, Paul, is, I'm thinking about Sean, and I don't know where you work or what you do and what kind of options you have, but maybe you start to think about going part-time. I mean, if you're passionate enough about living the drone life and that's something that you're willing to do anything to achieve, start talking to your bosses. And again, there might be environments where that's not possible.
Be very careful about what you say to your boss too, because some people are going to take it very negatively.
Absolutely.
And some people, maybe you just need to say, look, I'm going to do more part-time stuff. I just have a lot of family issues going on, and I want to be fair to you, and I want to be fair to my family and take care of both of those things. And I'd greatly appreciate your sympathy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that some people, the whole honesty route, I think is definitely good, but there are a lot of people out there that have their own best interests at heart, and they're not going to empathize with you.
Absolutely, and you have to understand your own situation. That suggestion is not for everybody by any means.
But the whole goal of Rob's suggestion of going part-time and allowing more time for your drone business is so that you're building up the volume of work so that when you do actually quit, the volume is already there.
Absolutely.
So now for me, I had to make more of a hard jump because I was just in a different position. But the sooner you say, I'm going to make this happen and I will do anything to make it happen, is the first day that you are going to realize that you're on a path to success.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, there are many other things that you've got to have in place, Rob. Going down the list, what's the next one?
Well, something else you obviously need to start thinking about is, where's my business going to come from?
You've got to have a niche. I can't say that enough.
Yeah.
John Lee Dumas, he came on the show and he talked about, have a drone business, offer that niche, be just a little bit different from the guys like Paul, talking about me, and really focus on that niche. Because if you don't focus on that niche, you're going to be all over the place. You're going to be scatterbrained. You're going to be like an ADD teenager who just can't get anything done, ends up getting nothing done. And it's funny, I really like what John has to say about focus. You really have to focus on one thing continuously until success.
Yeah, because what's going to happen, and this is almost a guarantee, is if you don't concentrate on a niche and sell out on that, essentially, when it gets tough, you're going to want to jump around. And by jumping around, you're just sabotaging the whole thing.
Yeah.
So the reason that you want to commit to something, at least up front, is so that when things get tough, you're still bought in to that process and that niche, and you don't slow down. You keep going after it even though it got tough, because, again, the worst thing you can do is start jumping all over the place.
Yeah.
And just throw yourself off the tracks.
And I did that.
It's not uncommon. I mean, I think a lot of people do that.
Yeah. It's just
because it gets scary.
It's emotion.
Yeah.
It's emotion-based decision making.
Absolutely.
And what happens when we make decisions based on emotion?
Well, things don't generally go well.
No, they don't. Be like Lincoln. Lincoln didn't like a lot of people. And Lincoln, when he really didn't like someone, would write them a letter. and he would scathe them, and he would write horrible things, but he'd never send the letter.
Right.
That way, he fed the emotional side of his brain, like, all right, I'm going to release.
Yeah.
But no one's going to hear it.
Exactly. And by the way, if you're going to do that on email, take the name out of the to line so you don't accidentally hit send.
Yeah,
Never
good
heard of
idea.
people doing that. Anyways, so you're going to need to figure out where your business is going to come from. Various ways to do that, Paul. One is to look at your circle of influence. If you've ever had any part of any sales job, you know you've been through that process, realtor, insurance, whatever, where when you get started, they have you think about the people that you know and figure out ways to reach out to those people, let them know what you're doing, and then you might be surprised at who's out there that you might be able to talk to who could lend you a hand somehow by introducing you to somebody, or maybe they actually would be willing to let you practice with one of their houses if they're a realtor, et cetera, et cetera. So just be thinking about who you can go talk to start developing a clientele.
Yeah, but also focus on building clienteles through mass demonstrations, like working with associations, like realtor associations. Now, remember I said focus on your niche. What type of real estate do you want to focus on? What type of client do you want to have? What type of profit margin are you looking for? So many people are like, Paul, I just do real estate to practice. And one person even said, I love Drone Base because I'm getting paid to hone my skills. Mm-hmm. I'm getting paid to just practice, you know? And I think that's so critical, but you've also got to focus on the progression of your skills. If you do truly progress, how are you going to force that progression? How are you going to challenge yourself further and further and further? Because just like we say in the book, no matter what job you're going to do with drones, you have to be good at flying.
Right.
Because if you're not, sure, you can get along for so long not being good at flying, but sooner or later you're going to run into problems. And are you going to have the intelligence to mitigate those problems? Yeah,
absolutely, for sure. Equipment needs.
See, now I think that I'm kind of hesitant on this one because if someone is starting their drone business, chances are they have already been the giddy 12-year-old child trapped in a man's body and bought the equipment. So chances are most people are going to have to sell off equipment because they got in super, super deep. And you know, you're like, oh, well, I got an S900 and I'm only doing real estate jobs. I don't need it. You know,
right.
You really got to focus on what do you need to create the efficient services that you're going to provide. That's it.
Yeah. And right now you can get into a really high-end bird like the Phantom 4 Pro and probably have everything that you need to get a business started.
Yeah.
You don't have to go the Inspire 2 route or even the Inspire 1 route.
I'm waiting on the Inspire 2, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, and that's just for me because I want to get some other classes done with the Mavic Pro and the Phantom 4 Pro. But the Phantom 4 Pro has an imaging sensor that takes the quality of work just to a whole new level.
Absolutely. And so then you're also going to have to process all of this data and these images and these videos. And so you're going to need decent computer equipment. So you got to make sure that you're established there. And you can maybe talk a little bit more about kind of a minimum that somebody might need to actually run a drone business from an equipment standpoint, like computers and so forth.
Talking again, reiterating this again, you have got to have the systems in place. You have got to prep unlike any preparation you've ever done before. You've got to create a business plan to focus on everything that you need to do so you can wrap your brain around it and say like, okay, I'm going to work on this day, this day, this day. If you kind of go all over the place like I did, it's going to take you a lot longer to build and to grow.
Yeah. So discipline is really critical.
Super critical.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to understand what your sort of primary disciplines will need to be. For example, making phone calls 30 minutes a day, an hour a day, whatever you can commit to. Getting out and flying an hour a day, making sure you're practicing. Maybe working on your systems in terms of what your workflow is going to be and getting that set up. That's probably something that you can maybe just block a couple of days of time and knock out. Something that we haven't done yet, but we want to make sure we get that to members here before too long.
Yeah.
Help with that whole processing of their deliverable. But there's just so much to think about. It's hard to go into all of this in a podcast and give them all the tips and tricks, but it's very doable.
It is doable. You've got to believe, you've got to understand, and you've got to be willing to work harder than you've ever worked before. And you're going to be like, oh man, that sounds like a lot. You got to remember, why? Why are you doing it? Okay, now let's focus on, let's get out of the mental, let's talk about the practical, reiterating, you've talked to your spouse, your wife, you're building up the volume of clients, you're not doing this in the winter time where drone business is slow anyway. You've got to remember this is a cyclical business. You've got to plan for that. There's just a lot to do.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that you can think about is look for, and we've had some members that have been examples of this, and I think it's a great example, and that is look for ways to hone your craft. And now you've got things like drone base, like you mentioned, you can go do it and get paid a little bit of money to practice. But we've had people that have, for example, said, hey, I'd love to go on that mission trip with my church and I'll take my drone. And they go and they practice getting really cool video footage of whatever it is that mission trip is doing or whatever. Look for different ways to go do what you're ultimately going to want to do. And you might have to do it for free. You might even have to pay for a trip. But it's going to be fun. You're going to enjoy the heck out of that process. And you're going to get better and better and better at what you do. You're going to start developing a reel. That's another important thing that we haven't even talked about. You got to start developing that.
You got to have a way to visualize your service to the client.
Right.
They have to be able to understand what you truly offer.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into it. So we're just popping off things. Like, I think it's just so important to have a client list, to have presentations set up, to have clients, already ready to go that you're servicing, that you have a cash flow worked in. You've got months of that cash flow, so you know what to expect. You've got money saved up for a long time for the rainy days, which they're going to happen. Don't be ignorant. It's going to happen. And be realistic with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And frankly, one of the last things that we'll mention here is be a part of a community of like-minded people. And shameless plug for Drone U.
It's so funny,
but
though.
It's so important.
You say that, and shameless plug or not, a lot of people say that the community is worth the $47 a month on its own because people stay motivated. They stay inspired. In fact, like, I could probably use some inspiration right now myself. So, I may go in there. But a lot of people find it as that good push that you need, the constructive criticism to help you move forward.
Absolutely.
Because people are going to be honest with you, and a lot of people, frankly, are not going to be honest with you. Your family members could tell you that you've got the best drone footage they've ever seen, and they have no comparison of what good drone footage is. So, of
course it's the best they've seen.
Yeah, exactly. You got to be real with yourself. So it's just really interesting, very, very, very interesting. Just
it is.
All the different things that are going on. So
yeah, for sure. And Sean, we really do hope that if you have follow-up questions about anything that we've said or just anything else that comes to mind, you'll send those in. And we want to be a part of this adventure that you're about to embark on, and let us know how we can do that.
Definitely. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us today. If you found this show useful or you have questions, leave us a comment below. If you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe to the podcast. Please leave us a review. We would greatly appreciate that favor. It really does help us out. And as always, if you have a question, askdroneu.com. That's going to do it for us today. My name is Paul.
I'm Rob.
This is Ask Drone U. I almost forgot to say that.